And joining us now with more on the Knesset decision to outlaw UNRWA is member of Knesset for the Likud party, Boaz Bismuth, and one of the co-authors of the UNRWA bill. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So this is a dramatic decision. Some have said it's long overdue, but how will this actually affect operations on the ground, both within Israel and in Gaza and Judea and Samaria?
Well, my bill is very straightforward. On the contrary, when I presented my bill, and I really had to fight for my bill, and we had so many meetings at the Foreign Affairs Security Committee concerning my bill, I think 11 meetings, which was a lot. One of the reasons why I was fighting, not only because it's a just bill, because this bill is something that Israeli also expect to come, but also a bill that, it concerns, Israel. In order to put it in action, you only have to ban UNRWA from operating in Israel. Don't forget, we're a sovereign country. We are the ones who decide. And this is why my bill is very straightforward. And in fact, I would also add one thing. If we say that what was before the 7th of October, it will not be after the 7th of October, this is one of the things we Israelis are expecting. Terrorism organization like UNRWA, supposedly to be a humanitarian organization, will not operate from Israel. Point.
Now, the Knesset defied immense international pressure in passing this bill. Many countries have expressed concern over UNRWA's role in providing aid to Palestinians, saying there is no other organization that can handle this task. What is your response to this criticism?
Very simple. There will not be a vacuum. We're Israel. We're supplying humanitarian aid to our enemies. Don't forget, during the Gaza war, Israelis didn't like or don't like, all this huge amount of humanitarian aid entering Gaza, yet we do it. For years and years and years before the 7th of October, hospitals in Israel, are treating people from Gaza. This is who we are. Meaning what? When I close the offices of UNRWA in Jerusalem, when I expel, when UNRWA will not be able to work anymore from our country, Israel, it does not mean that there will be a vacuum. Meaning all the humanitarian aid that all the supply or assistance or services that the people living in Israel are receiving from this agency, they'll receive it from us. And let me tell you something. In all those meetings we had at the Knesset, members of the Israeli municipality of Jerusalem were there, other organizations, and everybody is aware of the fact that services such as water, health, education, all this will be given to them. And let me tell you another thing. For example, in 2 or 3 of the meetings, you had a representative of the budget ministry, because they also know that Israel, this bill will cost money to the country, but it's also a question of sovereignty, a question of services, and Israel not only will continue to give those services, it will even upgrade them.
And so looking to East Jerusalem, to Israel's eternal capital, where UNRWA operates, UNRWA schools continue to teach hatred, to incite to terrorism against Israel, from within Israel. So will the task of, let's call it, denazifying, re-educating the Palestinians in East Jerusalem, will this task also now fall on Israel?
So first of all, a little correction for me, because it's always, difficult for me to listen when people say East Jerusalem, because you don't say East Paris, East London, East Canberra, East Tokyo. No, there's eastern quarters in Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is unified. Jerusalem is our eternal capital, undivided, and this is how it should be also in our thinking. And this is why I supply services to people who live there. And you said beautifully, and you said very correctly about UNRWA textbooks, that they teach kids with those books. Don't forget, let's give an example. We don't speak like this, just blah, blah, blah. Take a woman like Mugabe. Mugabe, if you read a textbook with which UNRWA is teaching, Mugabe is the hero. When you check who's Mugabe, she's an evil terrorist that committed crimes. So I can guarantee to you, when I said upgrade the services, by the way, so little Arab kids in Jerusalem will have the merit, the credit, to read or to be educated as an Israeli child and knowing, facts. And to the international community, I would say that if you're really keen of a Middle East with stability, if you're keen for a Middle East with security, if you are keen for a Middle East with peace, why not at the end of the day of the journey, then UNRWA cannot be part of this an actor in our Middle East. And this is why our bill, or my bill, if you want, the one I presented, is so important also for the future of the Middle East, because we want really to have, after this war, which is rough, which is tough, with so many casualties, we bury our kids every day because our soldiers are our children, don't forget that. At the end of the day, we want to make a restart with actors who are not terrorists. UNRWA on the 7th of October has decided to be not only supporting terrorism, but be a terrorist themselves. And I'll give you an example. Yesterday at the Knesset, when I presented my bill, was sitting there looking at us, the parents of Jonathan Samarano, who was hijacked by a social agent. This is how he called himself, a social agent of UNRWA with an UNRWA car. So with all due respect, this is something Israel cannot permit. This is something we shall not permit. And the last thing to the international community. You know, yesterday was a session where you had 45 ambassadors watching us. And they saw the head of the opposition, Mr. Yair Lapid. He was rough in his speech. He was violent in his speech. He was very, very, how would I say, I think it wasn't also very decent in his speech because the world was watching. The president was beside that. But the same Yair Lapid, a few hours later, voted for my bill, meaning it's a consensus. This is all of Israelis agreed that we have to fight terrorism, we shall eradicate terrorism, and UNRWA has decided to be a terrorist, and this is why my bill is so important for Israel and for the future.
All right, well, let's hope that this bill will indeed provide a better future for Israel and for the Middle East. Member of Knesset Boaz Bismuth, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Amen.